Welcome to Why on Earth, searching for understanding, meaning, and purpose. Today's episode, what is a country? What elements comprise or define a country, a state, a nation, or a kingdom? What has the world determined to be the criteria of statehood or nationhood? On December 26, 1933, the criteria for legitimate statehood were proposed at the Montevideo Convention in Uruguay. The convention, attended mainly by delegates from the Americas, decided that a country, a nation, or sovereign state must feature the following: permanent population, defined territorial boundaries, a government, the ability to enter into agreements with other states. 91 years later, these basic criteria for recognition as a state are held to be the standard of legitimacy in the world today. However, what seems to be overlooked in our day is another clause from the determination about statehood made at the Montevideo Conference. Among the convention's provisions were that signatories would not intervene with the domestic or foreign affairs of another state, that they would not recognize territorial gains made by force, and that all disputes should be settled peacefully. Nice ideals, but circumstances like political interference and persecutions, military or police action, terrorism, natural disasters, poverty, have caused governments to be overthrown, countries to cease existing, mass migrations of people to foreign lands, and general anarchy or lawlessness. In our world, more and more populations of people are fluid, boundaries are indistinguishable, and governments are being replaced abruptly. In their 2024 annual report, the International Organization of Migration, which is within the purview of the United Nations, estimated that there were 281 million global migrants in 2020, or 4% of the world's current population of 7.8 billion persons. More than half of those have moved from their country of origin to Europe or North America, 145 million, through legal or illegal migration. Today, the United Nations recognizes 193 countries in the world. In my lifetime, 106 countries have achieved recognized statehood, and roughly 83 once recognized countries have ceased to exist. Today, there are indications that the political maps of Europe and Asia, Africa, and the Middle East are being forcefully or diplomatically redrawn. Let's briefly discuss the 4 criteria necessary to achieve statehood or nationhood in our world today. First, many countries in our time have a permanent population comprised of those whose residency span many generations, but frequently, especially in the West, these are quickly being outnumbered by immigrants that have entered relatively recently. Legal and illegal entrants inundating borders and shores of Western nations have dramatically altered the ethnic composition of not a few populations in Europe and North America. Within this mass movement of peoples, the founding ideals and values of the societies that they have immigrated to are being replaced. Now, it may be argued that countries are enriched by multiculturalism, pluralistic beliefs, economic vitality. It seems, though, that this diversity is working to divide people rather than unite them. When every other nation's cause or dispute is violently acted out in the streets of our cities, when mass protests are held regularly and threats are made against people with differing viewpoints on any issue, when equity becomes more important than merit in every sector of our society, then countries and states and nations deteriorate and take their place in history with all that have gone extinct. Second, since the Montevideo Convention in 1933, territorial boundaries of nations and countries and states and empires and kingdoms have been as blurred as ever. Borders are constantly in flux. Throughout the Middle East, for example, Israel, Iraq, Kuwait, Syria. Territories of various nations in Africa have been unstable since the dismantling of European empires. Countries in Asia have been dominated or appropriated by the most dominant regional powers over the last 9 decades. Through political intent, the borders of Europe have become obscured, with a union of over 500 million people. And new conflicts are causing profound realignment. Borders in the Americas have become increasingly porous, and hundreds of thousands move inexorably northward in search of better lives. As borders become indistinct or insecure, the peace and safety of countries may be compromised. Political instability can occur, Economic disruption often results, and illegal activity increases exponentially. When a state cannot or will not defend its borders, a cultural or military invasion is inevitable. History is filled with states that passed into oblivion when they lost the ability to maintain the integrity of their territorial boundaries. Third, people or groups of people that identify as a nation at some time or another form of government. For the past millennia, large and small civilizations have been governed in various ways, through a monarchy, as a republic, theocratically, dictatorially, or with forms of liberal democracy. In the last century, such ideologies as communism, socialism, fascism, democracy have spread throughout human civilization. All these types of governments, with their ideologies, eventually come to an end due to systematic flaws, whether moral, military, or with other failings. When governments fail, the destruction of states, nations, countries, and kingdoms is imminent. This has been the case from Egypt to Assyria to Babylon to Persia to Greece to Rome, all the way down to our day. Countries, as we identify them today, have sown the seeds of their own destruction. These seeds have sprouted, and their growth is quite evidently verdant. Such is the record of human history. Fourth, the final condition for statehood, as defined at the Montevideo Convention, is the ability to enter into agreement with other states. Of course, there have been many such agreements in human history, military, political, economic, and so on. With the fall of states and nations and countries and kingdoms, these agreements have been annulled through one circumstance or another, often through conflict between the parties. History has shown that cooperation between nations is generally selfish and treacherous. Though the Montevideo Conference had the basic criteria for nationhood or statehood correct, states or groupings of states have fallen after a relatively brief time. It wasn't so much that basic ideas on structure or statehood or nationhood spelled failure, but implementation and operation were the fault. What has existed on earth throughout time, no matter what race, culture, religion, language, or ideology, is a form of nation building, or as the Bible describes, kingdom building. The prophet Daniel, in the second chapter of his book, starting in verse 37, foretold the existence and nature of great kingdoms from his day down to our time. You, O king, are King of kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and fowls of heaven has he given into your hand, and has made you ruler over all of them. You are this head of gold. Speaking of Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon in that time. And after you shall arise another kingdom, silver, inferior to you, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, for as much as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things. Just look at the projection and power and the extent of influence over the past 2,600 plus years. The Babylonian, the Medo-Persian, the Greco-Macedonian, Roman or European empires, with its 10 iterations to our time. Increasing in population, territory, and governance, breaking in pieces or subduing anyone or anything that gets in its way. We are introduced, however, in Daniel's prophecy, to the end of these kingdoms with a dramatic change that cannot be successfully opposed in verse 44 of Daniel 2. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other or succeeding people, but shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall last forever. God will consume and assume all of these kingdoms with one all-encompassing kingdom, his. This is the fulfillment of the gospel of the kingdom of God to be realized upon the return of Jesus Christ. I thank you for watching. We have many more videos available for viewing on this platform. We also invite you to visit our website at whyonearth.ca for articles with narration now, spiritual and informational features and material assistance for your life's challenges. Goodbye for now.